the center, and Orr! Bobby Orr! Scores for the Boston Bruins!
Before Michael Jordan had basketball, before Pele revolutionized soccer, hockey had Bobby Orr, but his story might not be what you think. Picture this: a 14-year-old kid from a small Canadian town who would become the only player in NHL history to win all 4 major awards in a single season. But here's the shocking part. His legendary career ended at just 30 years old. And folks, if you're loving these untold stories of hockey legends, smash that like button and subscribe. We're pushing hard for 1,000 subscribers, and with your help, we can unlock even more incredible NHL stories. Now, let's dive into how a small-town kid changed hockey forever. Born in Parry Sound, Ontario, Orr wasn't your typical hockey prodigy. While most future stars dominated from day one, he was the underdog, severely undersized and overlooked. But what he lacked in size, he made up for with supernatural skating ability that caught the eye of the Boston Bruins. They were so convinced of his potential that they secretly funded an entire team, the Oshawa Generals, just to develop him. By 17, Orr wasn't just playing hockey, he was rewriting its rules. In an era when players gratefully accepted whatever teams offered, he became the first to demand his worth. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing close to 200 pounds, he transformed from that undersized kid into a physical specimen. But it wasn't just his playing that changed the game forever. He revolutionized the business of hockey, partnering with lawyer Alan Eagleson to challenge the entire system. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you see what he did next. In 1966, the NHL witnessed something unprecedented. The Boston Bruins didn't just sign 18-year-old Bobby Orr, they made him the highest-paid player in NHL history. But what made a struggling team bet everything on a teenager? The preseason games answered that question. The Bruins, seeing his offensive brilliance, initially experimented with Orr at center. But what happened next shocked everyone. His defensive skills proved even more extraordinary. Picture a player who could not only score at will, but also clear the crease like a veteran enforcer and block shots with supernatural precision. The Bruins had struck gold, but his rookie season, that's where things get interesting. Imagine shattering every defensive scoring record in NHL history, winning the Calder Trophy as top rookie, and making the All-Star team, only to watch your team finish with one of their worst records ever: 17 wins, 43 losses, and 10 ties. Yet beneath this roller coaster of triumph and frustration lurked something more ominous. 9 games missed due to a knee injury, seemingly minor at the time, but this would become the dark shadow that followed Orr's brilliant career. This wasn't just any injury, it was the beginning of a tragic flaw in an otherwise perfect hockey story. The question wasn't whether Bobby Orr would change hockey forever, it was whether his body would let him finish what he started. The 1967-68 season started with a cruel twist. Knee injuries limited the NHL's highest-paid player to just 46 games. But what happened next would change Boston hockey forever. While Orr battled his demons in the training room, the Bruins executed a masterstroke, a blockbuster trade bringing in Phil Esposito, Ken Hodge, and Fred Stanfield from the Blackhawks. The result? Their wins skyrocketed from 17 to 37, and for the first time in a decade, playoff hockey was returning to Boston. The city erupted. Despite his limited appearances, Orr claimed the Norris Trophy as the NHL's best defenseman and made the All-Star team. But their playoff dreams shattered in a brutal sweep by the Montreal Canadiens. Still, the message was clear. The Bruins were no longer league punching bags. Then came 1968, and Orr unleashed something the NHL had never seen. He didn't just break records, he obliterated them. 21 goals, 43 assists, numbers that seemed impossible for a defenseman. The Bruins weren't just winning, they were terrorizing the league. Their first playoff victory against the mighty Maple Leafs came at a devastating price. In Game 1, Pat Quinn delivered a bone-crushing hit that left Orr unconscious on the ice. The crowd fell silent. Hockey's new king was down. But like any great story of redemption, Orr returned, leading the Bruins to victory. Yet the Montreal Canadiens, like an unbeatable final boss, ended their run once again. But this time, something was different. The Bruins weren't just losing, they were learning. And what came next would shock the hockey world. 1970, the year hockey changed forever. After years of building, Bobby Orr wasn't just breaking records, he was shattering them. 33 goals, 87 assists, 120 points. numbers that made veterans' heads spin. But what happened next would become the stuff of legend. Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Overtime, Bruins versus Blues. The moment. Orr launches himself through the air, arms raised in triumph as the puck hits the net. The Boston Garden erupts. The Bruins' 29-year championship drought, over. That Superman-like leap, now immortalized in bronze outside TD Garden, became more than a goal. It became hockey's Mona Lisa. But Orr wasn't done rewriting the record books. The following season, he orchestrated something unprecedented. 37 goals, 102 assists, 139 points. His plus-minus of plus 124, it still stands untouchable today, like a mountain no one can climb. Alongside him, Phil Esposito unleashed his own assault on the record books. 76 goals, 76 assists, a symmetrical masterpiece of 152 points. Yet, even with their 57-14 record, an old nemesis lurked. The Montreal Canadiens, hockey's dynasty, the team that had dominated 3 decades, struck again, crushing Boston's dreams in the first round. The Habs weren't just winning, they were haunting the Bruins every step toward greatness. Then came the contract that changed everything. $200,000 per season for 5 years, $1 million total, a number that made headlines across North America. Bobby Orr, the kid from Parry Sound, had become hockey's first $1 million man. The pressure of that contract would have crushed most players. But Orr, he responded with 37 goals and 117 points, leading the big bad Bruins with a swagger that terrified opponents. When the playoffs arrived, fate finally smiled on Boston. Their tormentors, the Canadiens, fell to the Rangers in round 1. The door was open. The Bruins didn't just walk through that door, they kicked it down. 2 Stanley Cups in 3 years. The dynasty was taking shape. But behind the celebrations and trophy parades, a question lingered. How long could Bobby Orr's brilliance outrace his failing knees? Being named MVP twice wasn't just another accolade for Bobby Orr. It was history in motion. Only 5 other players would ever match this feat. Legends like Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby, Roy, and Parent. But as Orr reached hockey's mountaintop, his knees were plotting their betrayal. The 1973 season told 2 stories. On paper, Orr was still supernatural, another 100-plus point season that defied logic. But behind the scenes, his knee was deteriorating. The Bruins felt it too, spiraling into a slump that cost their coach his job. When the playoffs arrived, the Rangers didn't just beat Boston. They shut down the unstoppable Orr, holding him to 2 measly points in a 5-game elimination. But greatness doesn't fade quietly. In 73-74, Orr unleashed another statistical masterpiece. 32 goals, 90 assists, and an eye-popping plus 84. Alongside captain Johnny Busick, he dragged the Bruins to the Stanley Cup Finals. The showdown against the Flyers became instant legend, a battle that came down to the final heartbreaking seconds, with Philadelphia emerging victorious. 1974-75 would be Orr's last full season in black and gold, and what a farewell symphony it was. He shattered his own defensive scoring record with 46 goals and 89 assists. But even these superhuman numbers couldn't prevent the Blackhawks from ending their playoff run in a nail-biting best-of-3 series. Then came the cruel twist. At just 27, when most players hit their prime, Orr's knees were failing. The same explosive power that made him revolutionary was destroying his body. The Bruins, seeing their superstar struggle to walk some nights, hesitated. His agent, Eagleson, painted them as villains. What happened next revealed the man behind the legend. Chicago offered an unprecedented deal, $3 million over 30 years. But Orr, knowing his body was betraying him, made a decision that defined his character. He refused to accept money he felt he couldn't earn. In an era of growing sports greed, Orr chose integrity over wealth. The greatest defenseman in history had played his last meaningful game at an age when most players are just hitting their stride. His knees, the very tools that helped him revolutionize hockey, had finally exacted their price. But while injuries could end his career, they couldn't touch his legacy. Bobby Orr had changed hockey forever. The final chapter of Bobby Orr's career reads like a Greek tragedy. The man who revolutionized hockey managed just 26 games with Chicago over 2 seasons before his knees forced him to hang up his skates. The same explosive style that made him legendary had ultimately destroyed his body. Only after double knee replacements years later could he finally walk without pain. But numbers tell the true story of Orr's impact. 9 hat tricks as a defenseman, a record that stands untouchable. For perspective, Harry Cameron from the 1920s managed 6, while modern legends Paul Coffey and Dennis Potvin peaked at 5 each. And remember, Orr did this in just 657 games. He wasn't just playing hockey, he was reinventing it. His combination of blazing speed and uncanny skill transformed the defenseman position from a stay-at-home role into an offensive weapon. While his career ended too soon at age 30, his impact on hockey was eternal. Some stars fade away. Bobby Orr's light was snuffed out at its brightest. The numbers tell an impossible story. Bobby Orr's plus 582 rating ranks second all-time, trailing only Larry Robinson's plus 722. But here's the kicker. While Robinson, Gretzky, Bourque, and Clark each played over 1,100 games to reach their plus 500 ratings, Orr did it in just 657 games. Do the math, and no one comes close to his game-by-game dominance. Was Bobby Orr really that good? He wasn't just good, he was untouchable. In an era of legends, he stood alone, revolutionizing hockey before his 30th birthday. His shortened career doesn't diminish his legacy. It amplifies it. Imagine what the record books would say if those knees had held up. That's the incredible story of Bobby Orr. If you enjoyed this deep dive into hockey history, hit subscribe. We're racing to 1,000 subs and have amazing stories lined up. Drop a like if you learned something new, and let me know in the comments which NHL legend you want to see next. Until then, keep your stick on the ice.